Alright guys, today's video is a chestnut tree update. This will probably be getting close down to the final one here, so I'm going to cover a few things for you because of, you know, the new additions to trace minerals that I've done. I feel that this might be pretty important for future chestnut production and or even health of the tree. So I'm going to try to cover an update and some broad topics all together. And I'm going to add some additional tips here on chestnut tree growing, just because of the situation that happened this year with cicadas, which is not a normal thing for these trees. So this is like a once in 17-year occurrence. So I'm going to talk about a few of the after effects of this that can last well beyond the time that these bugs attacked the trees. So we'll get into that right here, right off the bat. So right here is a really good example of what they've done. See how the limb's scarred? It's got rotted spots in it. If it'll focus even down into the new growth here, we have damage done to the new growth. The limb is not dead, but one of the issues you're going to run into is this has become a very brittle limb. Support on this is bad, and this can affect the nut production outcome. Like for instance, this tree itself has lost a lot of its burrs due to damage done from cicadas. Now, as a person that might want to do maintenance to a tree, if I were you and you see all this damage done, you need to cut this back beyond wherever the last bit of damage is, which is right here. So you can literally cut this limb back to here and get rid of that and let the new growth take over, which means as much damage as I've got, there would be a lot of limbs in here that would need to be trimmed back. And that can override all this ugly damage, which can invite disease and chestnut blight. So this tree's got multiple risk at hand, which is in the future breaking limbs. So even a year or two down the road, this right here can still break off. Weight of chestnuts, especially when your trees are in high production mode, which this one here has kind of been saved because of what the bugs did. So we're just down to very few chestnut burrs. If this tree had been loaded like what it was about to project, there would be additional limbs breaking off of this tree by now. So keep that in mind, that there's going to be a lot of new brittle limbs. I also want to note that there appears to be a change in the chestnut trees themselves since copper has been applied. And I'm going to show you something that I talked about in that other update video that like I had never seen before. I'm going to show you something on that. And I think there is the opportunity here for something either special or something rare. I don't know how to really classify that just yet. But now I have noticed that because of cicadas, we have different stages of development for burrs. There are some trees that appear to be in shock, even though they have grown nice dark green leaves, like what that limb looks like, or even this tree looks like. You know, they've bushed back out, the recovery looks good, but the burr still looks sick. So there may have been so much damage done to the limb that it's interfering with nutrient transfer to the burrs. Now this sick tree, it just needs a heavy dose of fertilizer. Now that I've got the copper in here to boost the roots, and it did grow again, but it's already stopped. A lot of these trees have stopped except for a few. And that tree would green up take off and look totally different. So all it's lacking to me at this point is a good dose of NPK. And that will help a lot. So another tree here. Burrs are also getting much bigger. There are some on here that are still lacking, that may not even develop. You know, a couple of them there look pretty poor. And that could simply just be either a bad pollination run, because the, you know, like right here, you can see the dead catkins that died from the bug attack or the cicada attack. And it really hurts the pollination being produced out of these trees. So there is issues that's going to occur well after the bugs are gone. So you may have to do additional maintenance to the trees that you don't normally do. So this has survived and has leafed back out. So I think after our next year, I'm just going to go ahead and remove these extra suckers, or I may remove all but one and wait one more year and then make my choice then. The only reason I'm kind of slow playing that is just because of that rotted spot down in there. I really don't like that. So I may just go ahead and cut the tree down and leave the sucker. That's still a viable option. All right, so this tree is a good example of something that appears to be in shock. A lot of small burrs, and they're not really showing a lot of development. And that is concerning. So there may be more cicada damage in here than what it appears to be just by counting dead limbs. So this is something I'm going to keep an eye on. And it could be that this tree is just going a little slower than the others, because I've got another one that's doing the same thing. And I don't know, at this point it's just a wait and see. You can only control so much as far as your final results. But some of them limbs don't look all that badly damaged. Some of the burrs should be further along than that. But I think last year this tree was also a little slow to develop. But there's plenty of burrs on it. I mean, there's no shortage of nuts, even though it did lose some to that attack. Now guys, I really don't know what to say about this tree. It's still producing catkins. Here it's September and we're producing catkins. I've never seen anything like that, like I stated in the other video. But the burrs on this tree are growing quite rapidly. Matter of fact, this is some of the largest burrs produced this year by any of the trees, and they are way more numerous than I thought they would be. See that? Copper helps with nut size. So I think what you're seeing here is copper is boosting the average size of the nuts. Now, it also could play a role in producing 1 or 2 additional nuts in these burrs because of how large they're getting. So this tree has several things that I've never seen before, and based on the average burr I'm seeing, this is by far the largest average burr production I've seen from this tree. Now remember, this tree has been treated differently than all the rest of the trees. That massive fertilizer run that I did on it greatly helped with saving the tree. Then the copper treatment came along, and that sent this tree into overdrive as far as health of the tree. See, like these dead limbs here, they're just brittle. That's no good anymore. It's okay to just break them off anytime you want to and try to just get rid of those extra weighted limbs that don't need to be there anymore. Now I got to find what I was looking for. Oh, here we go. I got 2 examples, if I can get to it. Look at this. Hold on one second here. All right, so here we are. Look at what copper did. That's all brand new burrs that were produced back in July. Like I said, I've never seen a tree do this. Ever in my lifetime produce a second wave of burrs. There is a possibility. See that limb up there? 80% of what you're looking at is second wave burrs. And look at all the catkins right here that's not even really producing yet. There's no pollen around except for one or two of those. And in this limb right here, there is a third set of burrs trying to form there. I found at least one or two in there that are little bitty knots. So it's actually producing a third wave of production. That is absolutely insane. I mean, if you're getting, let me zoom back out again. So if everybody's telling you that the average tree can produce less than 150 pounds, and I'm doing all this stuff to jack these trees up to produce more, if these are successful in any way, which I did find another tree, this one over here and this one right here actually made another wave of catkins. Very small amount, but that creates the opportunity now that maybe some of these here get pollinated. There is a much stronger possibility, because these trees really can't pollinate themselves, that this tree may produce a second late wave of nuts. So if you're trying to really push these trees for production, trace minerals is what you need to study. This tree is turning into literally a beast into production now. Limbs are bowing again, which I didn't think was going to happen this year, to be honest with you. This tree was so sick and so far behind from these other trees, and now it is literally ahead of every one of them again. Completely changing the outlook. So any tree that is sick and stressed out, it's simply a root problem, right? Could be. Well, I throw copper out here. Copper fixes roots. And let me loop around this way so you can see a better view of what this tree is actually doing. Look at that. This tree has a big, wide mushroom top. When you saw this tree at the beginning of spring, did you have any hope of seeing this tree produce? I mean, it was a slim chance. There was always that chance to me, but not on the scale of what it actually turned out. And if you count the second and third waves, see, look at that. Have you ever seen a chestnut tree in September still pumping out catkins? I haven't. I would challenge anybody to find this, film it, post it on my post section. If you're having these type of results when you get trace minerals put in there, let people know about it. This tree is still cranking out catkins. That is insane. I mean, I can't get over what this tree is trying to pull off. And it's still growing in small areas on here. So a lot of fill-in growth. This tree has thickened up a lot. The bark has started splitting because the growth ring is getting thicker. Also, if you ever wonder why some of these chestnut trees grow fatter than others, this is a little bit of a help for you. So the more burrs you produce, the fatter the tree becomes, because that's adding an additional layer to the cambium. So see how thin the stem gets here? Look behind the burr, twice as thick. So the more of these you produce, the girthier that these chestnuts can become. So if you got a tree that's smaller in stature and it's fatter than your biggest chestnut tree as far as height and width, that's usually a good sign it's a good producer. So the girth of the tree can be determined by production. That is some fantastic returns. So now, next year, when I do my new treatment regimen, because I will be able to afford it, these chestnut trees are going to hit a new level. And we'll see if you think 150 pounds on the top end is going to be the end of that. I don't think it's going to be. I think we could double or triple that number once we get this soil rocking and rolling. And even though my soil's acidic, which helps these trees out, it's the other nutrients that's going to make these trees perform probably like you've never seen before, or even what I've never seen before. So in instances where I've been treating with boron here, I saw production do 4 times as much on the average. Limbs were bowing, a few of them were breaking. Now I've thrown copper in here. What's going to happen to these limbs? Is it going to send these trees over the edge and we're going to snap limbs? Or is the tree going to become strong enough because of copper to handle that new weight class of nuts? So this is something we're going to have to be patient with. We'll wait till the following year and reapply this again, because I don't have to worry about cicadas next year. So we won't have this problem with a lot of dead limbs that had a lot of promise to them. Now, this tree has grown like crazy. So I would tell you the health of the tree looks to be in good shape. However, the nut burr development is way behind. It's very small, just like the big one back here. Very small. This one here, these burrs are averaging 3 to 4 times the size of these. Now this one has a lot of burrs in it. And I was expecting limbs to be breaking, bowing, and it's just not hardly doing that at all. I mean, I think it's grown so much now that it's actually countered the weight that the nuts are currently having. If all these are going to be duds because of the damage done by cicadas, then that could be why this tree has decided just to keep growing. If it's not going to divvy up a lot of nutrients to the nuts, that means it goes to other places, which supports way more growth. So the average growth up here at the top is pushing 3 feet. There's some limbs in here that are 4 feet long. Other limbs have finally stopped growing, which actually most of them have. Oh, and I did forget to mention something here. Just so you know, this is not limited to just a handful of trees. So right here's the first wave of production. Here comes the second wave of production. And yes, there are female flowers right there at the end. This tree is also participating in another catkin push. So, like I said, crazy things that I've never seen here before. You know, when you're spraying, like for those of you that are using that Mighty Mike's spray for your trees, which is a fantastic product, if you notice the difference between what I'm doing and what that spray has is the pure concentration of it. Because I put a lot more copper out than what that spray has in it. And now it's really forcing these trees to do stuff that I've never seen. So with copper being injected at a higher volume than Mighty Mike's, you might get something very similar results-wise to what I'm seeing. Mighty Mike's is definitely a very good product, and you will see a difference in your trees, even your garden, if you use that stuff. But when it comes to managing deer, smaller tracts of land, we ourselves have to find ways to make this produce like big boys. And if I'm using stronger doses than what the bottle has, it's working well for me. Now, your soil test will help you guys tremendously on your copper levels. If you have bad copper, then maybe exploring 4 to 5 parts per million would drastically change your property's production, growth rates, health, everything. So these trace minerals are more valuable than you can give them credit for. And I've known a long time that I've needed these, but the budget just simply didn't allow for it. And now that I'm seeing results firsthand, other than always using boron, it is amazing to me the changes that this place is going through. This tree here, I don't think it's actually producing additional catkins like the others, but at least it did leaf back out and it's looking all right. Some of the burrs are developing, which is good. That means the damage may not be quite as bad on some of those limbs. Now, right here, we have the Mac Daddy of growing. The biggest, longest growth that I have ever seen here has been 7 feet, and that came from the tree all the way up there at the top. It grew 7 feet in 1 year. But it didn't have a lot of supporting growth other than a couple of limbs up there that grew like 5 feet to go with it. This has growth everywhere. I know this is a sucker sprout, but I have never ever seen a sucker sprout with this much aggression coming back. A lot of limbs are averaging 4 feet. The exception to the rule is, I have to go over here to show you. I've got a couple in here that's beyond that. So right here, see where it starts off that limb? It grows all the way up here. That's a 5 foot plus long limb. This top is still growing really quick. It ain't even stopping yet. A lot of these other limbs have finally stopped growing, however you want to view that, just in time before frost gets here, even though it could have grown the whole month of September and I'd been fine with it. You can see more cicada damage, but the sheer bulk these trees are putting on is in a whole new class right now. This limb is now as fat as what this trunk started off being down here. That is huge, thick growth rings. This tree has some very, very aggressive growth, along with some very large leaf sizes. This is probably the healthiest this tree's ever been, and that includes before the ambrosia beetle attacked it and killed the original tree. And like I said in the other video, I'm not a fan of staking trees or using those tubes because I want the trees to produce their own strength. Even from the last video, this tree is continuing to straighten up on its own. I would say it's grown this way or straightened up this way another 8 inches to 10 inches more. So the whole upper portion of this tree is actually turning toward the mountains. It is straightening up on its own with that crazy heavy growth. And this big long 5 foot limb is still growing at a ridiculous clip. If that holds true, you're probably going to see 7 foot long limb if that keeps going. Those limbs up here at the top will probably hit maybe 4.5, 5 feet by the time they're done, because they're already over 3. I mean, just incredible results for you guys that have these younger chestnut trees and you're trying to get some size to them. I think you would be pretty happy seeing a young tree with this much vigor coming out of it. Now, I want to explain a few things here I'm going into deeper dives on this. Actually, hold on one more second. Let me go to this other sprout, and then we'll go back on this. All right, so that's why, this is one of the reasons why I keep multiple sprouts. I want to see what the outcome is of who's going to be the best one. Both of those were very promising looking returns. So this one carried with it some nice developed limbs, which you can see they have grown like wildfire, which adds girth to the growth of that particular sprout right there. So that's going to help thicken that trunk up down here just because of these extra limbs right here and right here. This one grew the straightest. It didn't have as much limb support like this one did. It was just mainly a very long, lanky growth. And I thought it looked very healthy because of how straight it grew and the fact that it just wasn't bending and warping. And now this tree has straightened up. This whole top was leaning at one point, and it has drastically straightened up. I mean, big time movement on a tree that was starting to lean out, just like what this one over here was doing. So, because of my patience and waiting for these trees to tell me what to do, I am keeping this guy right here. All right, I've done made my choice. Yeah, this one here would probably make a lot of people really happy, but because that tree right here is so much straighter, I want that one. And it's going to have a triple top here, so nobody's really telling me who's going to be the leader right there. That may take another 1 to 2 years to figure that out, but still, that is what I want. This is very healthy competition. This tree has handled everything thrown at it, but you can see where the Ambrosia beetle did so much damage. The growth that tried to kick in here broke the limb off. Some of these are dead because of the Ambrosia or the cicadas. Like, see how this is arching? It's all cicada damage. You can see it under here. It has changed those limbs, which I'm not keeping them anyway. So it's no big deal that anything down in here is damaged. It's going to be removed no matter what. So I will remove this one, and then we're going to keep the rest of this here for right now. Eventually I'll probably will clip some of that back to get rid of this ugly cankered growth now. But you can see what happens when you actually make these trees healthier. They will shock you at how fast and how large they can grow. All right, so let's get back over here real quick. And you can tell here, a lot of these other trees just couldn't do it. So much damage done, there was just no production. So that pretty much sums up that whole side right here, and even that big one there. All right, so let's go back and focus on these 3 trees right here. All right, so let's go back to what I did, because this is a good summary to help you remember, especially if you're new and you haven't seen any of these previous videos. I think it's important to know how we got to this point and some extra things that I've done. And I'm fixing to do it again. So this tree got so much fertilizer thrown on it. We're talking 25 pounds of NPK, a very large dose scattered into a concentrated area, because the health of this tree was so bad, it was dying. I noticed right off the bat that the tree started showing signs that improvements were beginning to take place. A lot of the limbs that were dying, they stopped dying. Some of the leaf color started greening up a little bit. But even with that large dose, things were still not moving like I wanted them. So the other portion is, I came in here and threw a bunch of copper out around this tree, and I didn't put a gap like I do with boron. I just put nothing but solid copper all the way down to this tree and all the way over to this tree. Solid copper. The other tree's got the break. So there's actually a gap of no copper between this tree and this tree, which might be in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 feet. Okay, so other trees got treated a little differently. This little triangle of trees here got treated differently. Kind of did a hidden experiment with my other with my copper distribution. So grass is green. That was bush hog not too long ago, and it's already 4 or 5 feet deep again. That Johnson grass that was in this area here exploded, and it's got even bigger seed heads than the previous batch. So that copper that I set out, which went another 12 to 15 feet beyond this tree, and it's really invigorated the Johnson grass, which is a big, bad, nasty. Now, here's another trick that I have done to help this tree along. So when I did this, if you notice how we have these big, bushy, green areas popping back up again, that's the fertilizer still taking effect. That's how much I dumped in here. It's been that long. And I almost dumped another round in here, and then I stopped when I added the copper. So I wanted to see what copper would do, and then boom, it off the tree went. So this one's fixed, but there's another thing that I did was this grass right here got so tall and thick that I found a perfect opportunity to mow this down and create a very thick mulch layer, which you can still see it here, right? This whole tree got a composting pile of mulch off of that grass that grew off of that high amount of fertilizer. Now, one or two things has happened again. Because of this mat that I created, it is a highly dense, nutrient dead mat. So this tree is getting trickle fertilized once again. And the leaf color, as far as like what you're looking for green, has went bonkers. Look at all the shine that is showing up on that tree now. Would you say that that's probably the healthiest leaf I've ever shown you? I think so. That's just my opinion on that. This tree is now probably the darkest green tree here. If it's not, it's number 2. It is insane what this thing has done. So now, because of this mat, I'm locking in moisture. That's another key in development for nut size, is adequate moisture. So we have a mat here. We do not have mats anywhere else. It's kind of just separated little chunks like that one right there. It's not solid like what this ended up being. It was so thick, when I come in here with the bush hog, it nearly shut the tractor down. That's how thick this got. So I had to go through here very slowly and use extra RPMs to make sure this thing cut. And I don't have dull blades on that thing. It was just that thick. So it shot out a solid blob of dead material. You can see it all through here. The grass kind of thinned out a little bit because of it, right? We have a mat that goes beyond the boundary or the canopy of this tree. So I'm protecting roots, I'm protecting soil moisture. I am also re-fertilizing this tree again with this rotting mat. I'm also encouraging worms to be here. I'm raising organic matter in the soil. So there's a lot of positive things that I have done for this tree, and the results really speak for themselves. So does that mean you need to go out and put compost around your trees? That's up to you. I'm not going to say you should do that or not. Just be careful you don't bank it up against the tree. You can cause it to rot and die. Keep it away from the trunk. But this mat, combined with trace minerals and a very high volume of fertilizer that most people probably wouldn't recommend. Remember, this was an experimental run that I did on this tree. So we have that one. This one, on the other hand, got a lower dose of fertilizer, and I'm referring to your NPK, got the same amount of copper, and it grew like crazy. So what would have happened if I had done my 25-pound experiment on that tree? Who knows? You might be looking at 8 to 10 foot of growth on a tree like that. That is a legit possibility if I had dumped a large volume of fertilizer there. This tree got fertilized by the hayfield guy when he run his buggy across here. So it actually got a slightly higher dose of fertilizer than this tree did. That is what happens when you have a full-size root system on an undersized tree. So that's one reason why this one grew so much more. This one had a good round of fertilizer. It just wasn't on the scale of what this one is. I created a semi-mat that is not nearly as nice as this one. So we have some smaller pockets that begin to show up here, but it's not a full armor of protection like the other tree. This tree did not get that protective armor from cutting down all this grass, which I will be doing again. I want to cut this down so the deer can find the nuts. I don't want a lot of resprout volunteer trees in here. I want to be able to control it. But this tree did get some form of a mat. Therefore, we have a combination of mat, we have a combination of fertilizer and copper. The big difference is more fertilizer, much better mat. Copper was the same. It might be a handful off, maybe. I tried to keep the same amount for every tree that I did. Next year, when I do my new treatments, we're going to focus on adding boron and copper together before these trees leaf out. We're going to see the effect of what happens when trees are treated with trace minerals or multiple trace minerals before they leaf out. That's the big connection that I've made over the years. If you wait till it leaves out, you don't get as much production. If you do it beforehand, it does a whole lot better. And that could be up to 2 weeks before you see your first leaves. So as soon as the buds swell, we're going to come out here and light this place up with the trace mineral fertilizer. Now, health of this tree actually looks like it's stabilized. The leaves are starting to show their wear and tear, but that tree is not. It's actually continued to strengthen itself, and the leaves have also strengthened their look. That's why the shine on that tree has become incredibly bright. It has a lot of reflectivity. So I'm fixing to do another wave of fertilizer when I cut this down again. And this will eventually subside as the tree absorbs more and more. And next year, this tree will probably grow like crazy. We'll see what happens to it. It may set its personal best. 4 feet is the most that tree has ever grown. And the way them leaves look and those limbs look, I think it's going to try to push it next year. So we'll see what happens. But I hope you enjoy this video. I know I've thrown a lot of information in here. It's important to understand the steps that you have done to get to the point where you're at. And if somebody's asking for help, videos like this is kind of like my documentation that I can show people. Say, hey, this is what I did. It may work for you, it may not. Everybody's going to have different situations than I am, but at least I'm going to try to help you get your trees to grow a lot better. I think you all would be happy with something like that, growth-wise. All right, guys, so I hope you liked the video. Hit that like and subscribe button. Probably one more chestnut tree video left to do, maybe 2, we'll see. And then that'll be the end of the chestnut videos until we do maintenance on them the following year. Have a good one.